I couldn't believe my ears when Anna, my wife, casually asked, "Hey, who's that handsome guy?" The words felt like a slap, echoing louder than they needed to as we approached Megan and David's backyard gate. It wasn't just me who heard it. Megan, our host, and an old friend turned to give her a startled look. I followed Anna's gaze and saw the man she was talking about, a tall, broad-shouldered guy chatting casually with Jake, David's brother. My jaw tightened as the irritation bubbled up. Just so you know, I'm standing right here," I muttered, keeping my voice low but sharp. Anna didn't miss a beat. With her usual smug grin, she quipped, "What? Am I not allowed to appreciate a good-looking guy when I see one?" "Noticing is fine," I shot back, barely holding back my frustration. "But if you're going to go out of your way to announce it, maybe keep it to yourself." Before things could spiral further, Megan intervened. She held the gate open with a cheerful, "No worries, you two. Come on in." Her voice was warm, but the tension in her expression betrayed her unease. I appreciated her attempt to smooth things over, even if it didn't make me feel any less embarrassed. Trying to focus on anything else, I lifted the case of beer I'd brought. "Where should I put these?" I asked Megan, hoping to shift gears. She pointed to a few coolers near a large tree. "Just find an empty spot over there. Some are for the kids' drinks, but most are for the beer. Gifts go on that table," she added, nodding toward Anna, who carried a neatly wrapped box. Before I could regain my composure, David walked up to greet us. "Hey, welcome, you two." He gave Anna a kiss on the cheek, a friendly gesture under normal circumstances, and reached for the beer. "Let me take that for you, Liam." I nodded, handing him the case, but Anna couldn't leave well enough alone. "Hey, David, who's the guy sitting over there with your brother?" she asked, her tone so deliberately nonchalant it set my teeth on edge. David, oblivious to the tension at first, followed her gaze. "Oh, that's Luke. He works in construction with Jake." "Why? Do you know him?" "No," Anna said with a smile that made my blood boil. "But I wouldn't mind. He's a total hunk." David, finally catching on, glanced at me with an awkward laugh. "Oh, Liam, sounds like she's shopping for a new model." I forced a laugh, though my fists clenched at my sides. "Yeah, sounds like she's already putting me on the clearance rack." Megan, always the mediator, stepped in again. "All right, let's get those gifts taken care of. David, why don't you help Anna?" As they moved toward the gift table, Megan leaned into Anna, her voice low. I couldn't make out everything, but I caught enough to piece it together. Megan asking Anna what was going on, and Anna brushing it off with some nonsense about me flirting with waitresses. My jaw tightened as I replayed her words. Flirting? Me? Sure, I'd been friendly with a server once or twice, but Anna had twisted that into something ugly, something it wasn't. And now, of all times, she was pulling this? At a kid's birthday party, in front of our friends? To embarrass me? To prove some petty point? When their whispering ended, Megan shot me a look, her face a mix of concern and apology, before heading off to greet more guests. Anna, on the other hand, smirked at me like she'd just won a game I didn't know we were playing. I swallowed the wave of anger threatening to spill out, forced a polite smile, and followed her into the party. If she wanted to make a scene, it wasn't going to be on me to cause it. Not here. Not today. After handing off the beer to David, I decided to catch my breath and figure out how to handle the growing tension. But as luck would have it, Anna and I ended up approaching Samantha, the birthday girl, at the same time. Anna spoke first, flashing a bright smile. "Congratulations, sweetie. You're officially a teenager. You know what that means? You get to make your parents' lives miserable now," she teased. I followed up, aiming for a lighter tone to cut the awkwardness. "That goes for me too, Sam." "Well, the congratulations part, not the making life miserable part," I joked. Samantha laughed, her cheeks flushing slightly. It was no secret among our group that she'd always had a harmless crush on me, dating back to when she was a toddler. "Thanks, Mr. Liam," she giggled, giving Anna a quick hug and planting a kiss on my cheek. "Oh, these are my friends, Coral, Katie, and Danielle," she added, introducing the trio of girls standing nearby. We exchanged quick pleasantries, but I could tell Anna was eager to move on. She wasn't here to chit-chat. She had an agenda. Turning back to Samantha, she added, "All right, sweetie. I'm going to go say hi to your uncle. Catch you later." I stepped forward instinctively, ready to join her, but something about the way she moved told me she didn't want my company. "Behave yourself," I muttered under my breath, just loud enough for her to hear. She shot me a sly, almost wicked glance before heading off. Before I could follow, David motioned for me to come over. He was still by the coolers, and I decided to let Anna go for now. I didn't want to make a scene, especially not in front of the kids. As I walked over, David leaned in, lowering his voice. "Hey, just a heads up. Megan had a little chat with Anna earlier. Seems she's under the impression you've been flirting with some waitress." I blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, what? Flirting? When? Who told her that?" David shrugged. "I don't know the details, man. Megan didn't say. But I think Anna's got it in her head to use Luke to make you jealous. That's probably why she's been talking him up." I rubbed the back of my neck, trying to process what he just said. This is ridiculous. I haven't flirted with anyone, let alone some waitress. Did she even say where this supposedly happened? Nope, just that she heard about it. Look, I think she's just trying to make a point. Best thing you can do is stay cool. Don't take the bait. As much as I wanted to ignore it, the situation was spiraling. Meanwhile, Anna had wasted no time making her move. I glanced across the yard and saw her approaching Luke, all smiles and charm. Jika. "Hey, Luke," I heard her say. Luke stood up, offering a confident grin. Luke. "I assume you were talking about me," he said, clearly aware of the attention he was getting. Anna laughed lightly, tilting her head. "Who else would I be talking about?" Jake, clearly uncomfortable, interjected. "Hey, Anna, where's Liam?" "Oh, he's over there, chatting with David," she replied nonchalantly. She gestured to Luke's beer. "You know, I'd love one of those. Think you could grab me one?" Jake hesitated but nodded, heading to the coolers. As soon as he was out of earshot, Luke pulled out a chair for Anna. She took the seat with a casual glance in my direction, locking eyes with me for just a moment. She smirked, clearly pleased that I was watching. David leaned closer to me, his voice low. "She's definitely trying to get under your skin, man." "I know," I replied, my voice tight. "I just don't know how far she's planning to take this." When Jake returned with a beer for Anna, he lingered, clearly unsure what to do. Trying to change the subject, he brought me up. "You know, Anna, I've seen some of the photos Liam's taken. That lumberyard fire last year? Incredible stuff. Is he entering that contest again this year?" Anna's smile didn't falter, but I could hear the faint edge in her voice. "I assume he will. He loves those competitions. He actually won a big state award last year." Luke leaned back in his chair, his grin slightly mocking. "Impressive," he said, his eyes darting to me across the yard. There was something in his tone that made my stomach churn, not admiration, but condescension. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. Ignoring Anna might make her escalate things further. But confronting her now, in front of Luke, that would only feed her game. I needed a plan, and fast. Anna confirmed it was me she was talking about, her tone sharp and dismissive, like she wanted to erase my presence entirely. Luke, who'd clearly noticed the tension, shifted the conversation to safer ground. He started talking about how much he enjoyed working with his hands, constructing things that would last. It was a polished line, and he delivered it with a confidence that grated on me. I'd seen this type before. Turning to Jake, he sought validation. "Isn't that right, Jake?" he said with a knowing smile. Jake, caught off guard, nodded quickly. Yeah, sure." Anna leaned into the conversation, practically shutting Jake out as she refocused her attention on Luke. I could see Jake's discomfort, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. He'd probably heard Luke use that same line on women in bars, no doubt with great success. Jake excused himself awkwardly, muttering something about wishing his niece a happy birthday for the umpteenth time. Meanwhile, I tried to keep myself composed, mingling with the others while keeping an eye on Anna and her new companion. The men didn't comment on her behavior, but the women? They were buzzing like bees. I overheard Megan and her friends speculating about Anna's antics, their voices carrying just far enough for me to catch snippets. One of them, Jenny, mentioned something about me being a photographer and how our jobs often put us in challenging situations. She seemed surprised I hadn't intervened physically. I chuckled bitterly under my breath. It wasn't Luke's fault, really. It was Anna's. She was the one creating this mess. And as much as her actions infuriated me, I wasn't about to lose my temper. That wasn't who I was. Still, I couldn't help but notice the empty beer bottle sitting next to Anna's chair. Another was already in her hand. She always drank more when she was anxious, and clearly, this whole charade was starting to rattle her. Luke, on the other hand, had 3 empties by his side. Great. Just what I needed, a smug, tipsy player who thought he was in control of the situation. Before I could decide my next move, David's voice cut through the murmurs. All right, everyone, food's ready. He was standing by the grill, the aroma of burgers and brats wafting over. It was a reminder of how distracted I'd been. I hadn't even noticed how hungry I was. David listed off the food options, and I realized this might be my chance to break up Anna and Luke's cozy chat. If I could steer her toward the food table, maybe we could find a quiet corner to talk. But before I could act, I saw them both stand, setting their beers down beside their chairs. Luke, emboldened, placed his hand on Anna's elbow, steering her toward the food like she was already his. Not happening. I moved quickly, closing the distance in just a few steps. Excuse me, I said, my voice low but firm. Could you take your hand off my wife? Luke froze, then slowly released her elbow, raising his hands as if in surrender. Sorry, man, he said with a chuckle that made my fists clench. We were just heading to grab some food. Yeah, well, I got it from here, I snapped. My tone left no room for argument. I took Anna by the arm. Not roughly, but firmly enough to make it clear this wasn't negotiable, and steered her toward the food table. Her eyes burned with anger. What the hell, Liam? That was incredibly rude, she hissed. I didn't respond immediately, keeping my focus ahead. Grab some food, I said flatly. You and I are going to have a talk. Over by the shed. While we eat. She huffed but didn't argue, which told me she knew I wasn't in the mood to entertain her games. As we moved away, I noticed Jake taking the opportunity to corner Luke by the coolers. Finally alone with his colleague, Jake's tone shifted. What the hell are you doing, man? He asked, his voice tight with frustration. She's married. Married to one of my brother's closest friends. Leave her alone. Luke didn't back down, his grin irritatingly smug. Hey, I'm not the problem here. She's the one hitting on me. I'm just being polite. Polite? Cut the crap, Luke. Seriously, knock it off. This is my niece's birthday party, not a bar. You're making things worse. Luke shrugged. Look, I'll back off if that's what you want. But for the record, I think you're wrong. She's into me, really into me. You can tell yourself whatever you want. But I've been around women long enough to know when it's genuine. Jake glared at him, clearly losing patience. I don't care what you think. Just back off. If she comes to you again, send her right back to her husband. Got it? Fine, fine, Luke said, raising his hands again. If that's what you want. I caught part of their conversation as I grabbed a plate of food. So, Luke thought Anna was into him. He was wrong. She wasn't interested in him. She was interested in making me miserable. But if he didn't back off soon, he was going to find out just how serious I could get. Fine, I'll back off, Luke said to Jake, still grinning smugly. Scout's honor, he added, holding up a mock salute before heading toward the food table. Meanwhile, Anna didn't seem particularly rattled by my intervention. In fact, she seemed more amused than anything, though I could tell by the tension in her posture that she knew I wasn't playing around anymore. She had been testing me, pushing boundaries, but when I'd taken her by the arm and walked her away from Luke, she must have realized I wasn't intimidated. She'd seen enough to know when I'd reached my limit. We both grabbed plates and filled them with food. I gestured toward the shed, away from the crowd, and led her there. As soon as we were out of earshot, I handed her my plate. Here, hold this while I grab a couple of chairs. Despite my frustration, I still held the back of her chair as she sat, then pulled mine close enough so we could talk quietly. I took a couple of bites, trying to calm the simmering anger in my chest. But I couldn't hold it in for long. All right, I said, leaning forward, my voice low and direct. What's this I'm hearing about me flirting with a waitress? Anna looked at me with that same smugness that drove me crazy. I don't know the exact details, she said lightly, stabbing at her food. I just heard it happen last week. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Last week? That's pretty vague, don't you think? Well, she replied, Maybe you'd know more about it than I do. Do you flirt with every waitress you meet? I was taken aback by the accusation. Flirting? Kissing? Who told you this? Anna's eyes narrowed slightly, her confidence wavering for the first time. That's what I heard. There are only two possibilities here, I said, setting my plate down. Either this is a complete mix-up, or someone's lying to you. I haven't kissed anyone but you since we started dating, Anna. You know that. Her gaze lingered on me, as if she were searching for something in my eyes. I'd seen that look before, her trying to read me to figure out if I was being honest. But I had nothing to hide. She should have known that. Why would someone claim they saw you kissing a waitress if it wasn't true? She finally asked, her voice softer now. Beats me, I replied, shrugging. Since she's your friend, why don't you ask her? How do you know it's a woman? Anna shot back. It better be a woman, I said, leaning back in my chair. Because if a male friend told you this, I already have my answer. Her brow furrowed in confusion. What's that supposed to mean? I gave her a pointed look. If it's a guy, he's into you. He's trying to stir up trouble between us, so he can swoop in and play the supportive friend. That's how. That's ridiculous, she scoffed. Is it? Think about it, I countered. Was it a man? No, she admitted. Then we're back to square one. Ask your friend why she's lying to you. Silence stretched between us as we finished eating. Anna seemed more subdued now, her earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. When we were done, I set her empty plate and beer bottle aside and looked her straight in the eye. This is Samantha's birthday party, and I'm not letting it turn into a circus. If I see you cozying up to Luke again, I'll leave. You can figure out your own way home, or spend the night with Mr. Muscles. But if you do, don't expect to come back to a home that includes me. Understand? Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she seemed genuinely taken aback. Liam, calm down. I wasn't going home with Luke. I wasn't even considering it. I just wanted to show you what it feels like when your spouse flirts with someone else. Well, I said firmly, you've shown me. So let's end it here. I stood, gathering our plates and trash, and walked over to dispose of them. As I turned back, I was relieved to see Anna standing right where I'd left her, not wandering back to Luke. At least that was something. But Luke, he wasn't as content. From the corner of my eye, I caught him sneaking glances in our direction as he sat by himself, chewing on a chicken patty. His expression made it clear he wasn't happy. He still thought Anna was interested, probably thought she'd come running back if I let my guard down. But I wasn't letting my guard down. Not today. Not ever. I caught Luke glancing in Anna's direction again, his expression smug yet frustrated. Earlier, he might have been hoping for a quiet moment to slip away with her, maybe to a secluded room upstairs, or even his car. But I'd cut those plans short. He knew we were watching now, and whatever fantasies he'd cooked up had been put on hold. Still, I could see the wheels turning. He wasn't giving up, just recalibrating. Anna, to her credit, stuck close to me for the rest of the party. Occasionally, she drifted off to chat with friends, but she always came back to my side. It seemed like she decided to play nice for now. She probably sensed that she'd already pushed me as far as she could. The only time she and Luke had any further contact was during the group rendition of Happy Birthday. Everyone had gathered around Samantha's cake, and I saw him sidle up beside her. I didn't think much of it until I noticed her flinch slightly, then glance sideways at him. Luke was wearing that same cocky grin, and Anna looked stunned, her expression quickly shifting to irritation. I didn't see what he did, but I had a pretty good idea. I caught Anna looking around quickly, probably checking to make sure no one had noticed. She didn't react openly, no slapping his hand or calling him out. That wasn't her style, especially not here. She wanted to avoid drama, at least for the rest of the party. Still, her silence gave Luke exactly what he wanted, a false sense of control. When the song ended and Samantha blew out the candles, Luke pulled back and joined the applause, his smugness intact. I caught his voice nearby, but didn't see anything unusual. Anna, naturally, wasn't about to confess to me what had just happened. Luke must have interpreted her lack of reaction as permission. He was playing his own game now, convinced she was interested, maybe even waiting for an opportunity to slip away with him. But I knew guys like him, arrogant, full of themselves, and absolutely convinced they were irresistible. They didn't give up easily, and that made them dangerous in their own way. As the party carried on, things started to loosen up. David turned on some music, and the kids set up games in the yard. Darts went up on the old oak tree near the shed, and Samantha's friends brought out a beanbag toss. A group of women pulled out card tables for bingo, and everyone seemed to relax a little. Anna and I ended up in a friendly beanbag game against Samantha and her friends. Tony had warned us that Samantha was good, and he wasn't wrong. We managed to win the first round, but the next two went to the kids. Anna laughed, kissed me on the cheek, and then leaned in. "I need to use the restroom," she said lightly. "I'll be back in a few minutes." "Sure," I replied, pretending to focus on the dartboard. "I might challenge Jake to a game of darts while you're gone." She wandered off, stopping to chat with a few friends on her way to the house. I kept an eye on her until she disappeared inside. A moment later, I noticed Luke standing up from his seat. My chest tightened. His casual departure didn't feel casual at all. Jake must have noticed too. "Where's he off to?" he muttered, mostly to himself. I paused mid-throw and turned to him. "What was that?" Jake gestured toward the gate. "Looks like Luke's leaving. Didn't say goodbye or thank David for the invite. Kind of weird." I followed his line of sight and caught a glimpse of Luke slipping through the gate. My first thought was relief. Maybe he'd finally given up and decided to leave. "Probably upset Anna's not paying attention to him anymore," I said. "Maybe he thought she'd make plans with him." Jake nodded. "Wouldn't surprise me. He's good at charming women, though. I've seen him leave bars with some of the best-looking women there." I turned back to the dartboard, trying to focus, but an uneasy thought crept in. How would someone get into the house without being seen? It hit me almost immediately, the gate. He could circle around the front and slip in that way. Handing the darts to Jake, I muttered, "Be right back," and headed toward the back door. As I reached the back door, I could hear the faint hum of party chatter fading behind me. Stepping inside, I moved quietly through the house, my senses on high alert. Something didn't sit right. The thought of Luke sneaking around sent a wave of anger surging through me, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about losing my temper. It was about protecting what was mine. The hallway leading to the bathroom was empty. For a moment, I thought I might have overreacted. Maybe Luke had actually left, and I was chasing shadows. But then I heard muffled voices, and something that sounded like a struggle. I turned the corner just in time to see Luke pinning Anna against the bathroom doorframe, his hands gripping her shoulders as he forced a kiss on her. She hesitated for a moment, her hands rising as if to push him away, but it was as if she was frozen, trying to process what was happening. That hesitation was enough for me to see red. I crossed the hallway in 2 strides, grabbing Luke by the shoulder and yanking him backward. His surprise gave me the opening I needed, and I drove my fist into his solar plexus. The breath whooshed out of him as he stumbled back into the bathroom, collapsing onto one knee, gasping like a fish out of water. Anna stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide. I didn't wait for an explanation. I turned and walked out, the rush of adrenaline and anger clouding my thoughts. I didn't care what she had to say, not yet. I needed space. I made my way to the front door, my legs moving on autopilot. The sound of my own heartbeat thundered in my ears as I stepped outside and got into the car. I started up and backed out of the driveway, not even glancing in the rearview mirror as I drove off. The drive home was a blur. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I couldn't stop replaying the scene in my head. Luke's hands on her, that smug grin, the hesitation in Anna's response. Had she encouraged him? No, I didn't want to think that. But she'd been playing games all day, and this was the result. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my anger had settled into something heavier. Disappointment, maybe. I wasn't sure what to do next. Part of me wanted to pack a bag and leave, just to see how she'd handle the consequences of her actions. Another part of me wanted to wait, to make her explain herself. I walked into the house, the quietness almost deafening. I didn't bother turning on the lights. Instead, I headed straight for the kitchen and grabbed the coffee grinder. I needed something to do with my hands, something to keep me from pacing a hole into the floor. The sound of the front door opening broke the silence. I heard Anna's footsteps in the hallway, hesitant, almost timid. Good. She should be nervous. She should understand the weight of what had just happened. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face pale. For a moment, Neither of us spoke. Then I broke the silence. Did your lover bring you home? I asked, my voice cold. Her eyes widened. Liam, he's not my lover, she said quickly. The last time I saw him, he was still on the bathroom floor, trying to breathe. Good, I replied, setting the coffee grinder down. But that doesn't explain what I just saw. Anna stepped closer, her hands trembling. He grabbed me, Liam. I didn't want him to. You didn't push him away, either, I interrupted. At least, not fast enough. She flinched, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But instead, she straightened her shoulders, a spark of defiance in her eyes. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. And I sure as hell didn't expect him to act like that. Didn't you? I challenged, stepping closer. You've been playing with fire all day, Anna. Cozying up to him, giving him the green light. What did you think was going to happen? Her defiance faltered, guilt creeping into her expression. I just wanted to make you jealous, she admitted quietly. I wanted you to feel what I felt when I thought you were flirting with someone else. Well, congratulations, I said bitterly. You've done that and more. Anna looked down, her hands wringing nervously. I'm sorry, Liam. I swear, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I'll talk to him. I'll make sure he knows. Don't bother, I snapped. He knows. And if he doesn't, I made it pretty clear back there. The room fell into silence. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the way she wrestled with her guilt and pride. Finally, she spoke. Can we just start over? Please, she asked, her voice small. I sighed, the weight of the day pressing down on me. That depends, Anna. Are you ready to stop playing games and actually fix this? She nodded quickly, tears brimming in her eyes. Yes, I'm ready. I stared at her for a long moment before nodding slowly. Then let's start by being honest, with each other and ourselves. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. And for now, that was enough. Anna's apology lingered in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore, but not yet enough to clear the room. I nodded, letting her know I'd heard her, but I didn't speak. My silence was deliberate. I wanted her to sit with her discomfort, to feel the weight of what had happened. The truth was, I wasn't sure what to say, or if I was ready to believe her. She fidgeted, clearly unnerved by my lack of reaction. Liam, she began hesitantly. He caught me off guard. I wasn't engaging with him willingly. He ambushed me. As soon as I opened the door, he just pinned me against it and kissed me. I raised an eyebrow. Funny, I said flatly. It didn't look like you were resisting. Her cheeks flushed. You stepped in before I had the chance. I was stunned. It all happened so fast. I didn't even have time to process it before you pulled him off me. Convenient, I replied, my tone dripping with skepticism. Anna's frustration began to show. What do you want me to say? That I messed up? Fine, I messed up, but not like you think. I didn't invite this. I didn't want this. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. So what am I supposed to do with that, Anna? Pretend I didn't see what I saw? Brush it off as some misunderstanding? You were the one who spent the whole party cozying up to him, feeding his ego. And now you're surprised he took it too far? Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked genuinely defeated. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand. I was trying to prove a point. And what point was that? Exactly, I asked, my voice rising. That you could humiliate me? That you could make me jealous? Because congratulations, you nailed it. Anna's voice cracked. I wasn't trying to humiliate you, Liam. I was trying to make you understand how I felt. How you felt. I shot back. When, Anna? When you accused me of flirting with some waitress your so-called friend supposedly saw me with. Let's talk about that. Have I ever lied to you? Ever given you a reason to doubt me? She shook her head quickly. No, never. Then why the hell did you believe her over me? My voice was louder now, the anger I'd been holding back finally surfacing. You chose to trust one of your shallow friends instead of the man who stood by you for years. Do you have any idea how insulting that is? She flinched at the word shallow, but didn't argue. Instead, she dropped her gaze to the floor. I wasn't thinking straight, she admitted. I let my insecurities get the better of me. You're so charming. People gravitate toward you, Liam. Women especially. You don't see it, but I do. Oh, come on. I said, shaking my head. You're making me sound like Brad Pitt or something. Anna looked up, her eyes pleading. You don't have to be Brad Pitt to turn heads, Liam. It's the way you are, friendly, approachable. Some women misread that, think it means something it doesn't. I've seen the way they look at you. So you think that justifies believing I'm sneaking around kissing waitresses? I countered, my frustration mounting. I don't know what I thought, she said, her voice cracking again. But I was wrong. I see that now. The argument dragged on, circling back to the same point, trust. Neither of us was willing to budge. I couldn't let go of how she doubted me, and she couldn't fully admit how much damage her jealousy had caused. By the time we finally stopped talking, we were both emotionally drained. That Tuesday, I met David for a drink after work. I was already nursing a beer when he arrived, grinning like a fool. Joe, Rocky. How's Adrian? He said, his best Stallone impression failing miserably. I smirked despite myself. Isn't Rocky the one who talks like that? Yeah, but I can't do Burgess Meredith, so you're stuck with what you get, he replied, chuckling as he sat down and ordered a drink. His tone turned more serious. So, how are things between you two? Still tense? Barely on speaking terms, I admitted. She knows I'm still angry, so she mostly avoids me. I don't know, man. I'm not sure where we go from here. David gave me a sympathetic look. When are you going to cut her some slack? Most people at the party didn't even notice anything was wrong. After you left, a couple of folks asked about you and Anna. I just told them something unexpected came up. They probably assumed you two were rushing home to, well, you know. He winked. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, well, that's not exactly what's been happening. David laughed, but quickly shifted gears. What about Luke? Is he planning revenge or something? Doubt it, I said, shaking my head. Adam filled me in after he drove Anna home. When I went back inside, Luke was just getting back on his feet. He mumbled something about me landing a sucker punch. David's grin widened. You're telling me you hit him? Hard enough to drop him? Damn, Liam. Didn't think you had it in you. Yeah, well, I said, taking another sip of my beer. He deserved it. David raised his glass. To standing your ground. I clinked my bottle against his, but inside, I wasn't celebrating. I knew this wasn't over. Not with Anna, not with Luke, and definitely not with myself. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head as David chuckled at his own joke. I sure did. I muttered. And he deserved it. David raised an eyebrow. Oh, he knows it too. He was talking big about getting back at you, but I warned him to stay far away. Told him you're the toughest guy around, and that I've seen you take down guys twice his size. I couldn't help but laugh. You've never seen me do anything remotely like that. David shrugged, a mischievous glint in his eye. Maybe not, but Luke doesn't know that. I even threw in a Bible quote to scare him off. I raised an eyebrow. You? A Bible quote? That's new. David grinned. Yeah, my favorite one. Though he walks through the valley of the shadow of pass away, he fears no evil because he's the toughest, meanest son of a gun in the valley. He puffed his chest for dramatic effect. And that, my friend, is you. I couldn't stop laughing. That's complete nonsense. Of course it is, David admitted, but Luke doesn't need to know that. I think I scared him enough to keep him from messing with you again. Well, I said, lifting my beer, I appreciate the assist, buddy. David clinked his bottle against mine, his grin fading slightly as his tone shifted. So, what's really bothering you, Liam? You've been on edge since the party. I sighed, running a hand over my face. What annoys me most is that Anna still doesn't believe me. She apologized, sure, but I can tell there's still doubt in her mind. David studied me carefully. Are you absolutely sure you didn't? I don't know. Maybe kiss the waitress? Even just a peck on the cheek? No, I replied firmly, but the memory tugged at the back of my mind. Something had happened. My expression must have shifted because David leaned in, his grin returning. Ah, you did kiss her, didn't you? No, I insisted. She kissed me. I paused as the realization hit me. Damn it, I know what this is all about. The next day, I walked into Anna's office unannounced. She looked up, startled, as I approached her desk. Liam, what are you doing here? I didn't waste time. We're going to lunch, I told her flatly. Her eyes widened. What? Now? I can't just... Already cleared it with your boss, I interrupted. I told him it was a minor family emergency. He said you could take an extended lunch. Anna hesitated, confused. A family emergency? What's going on? Come on, I said, motioning toward the door. I'll explain on the way. She grabbed her bag reluctantly and followed me to the car. As I held the door open for her, she asked again, "Where are we going? And what's this about a family emergency?" "You'll see," I replied, starting the car. "Call your friend. Ask her where this supposed incident happened." Her confusion deepened. "Why?" "Just do it," I said firmly. "Trust me." Reluctantly, she pulled out her phone and dialed. After a brief conversation, she hung up and turned to me. It was Deers on Homan Avenue. I nodded, smiling faintly. "Perfect. That's where we're headed." Anna fell silent, the tension between us growing with every passing mile. I could feel her unease, but I didn't offer any reassurances. Let her wonder. Let her stew. She needed to see the truth for herself. When we arrived, I guided her inside with a hand on her back. As soon as we stepped through the door, her shoulders stiffened. She muttered under her breath, "Damn." I found a booth and motioned for her to sit down. She slid in reluctantly, and I joined her. A moment later, Marilyn, our waitress, approached, her face lighting up with recognition. "Well, well," she said, smiling warmly. "Looks like you brought your better half today, Liam." Anna flushed, her embarrassment clear. "Hi, Marilyn," she said quietly. Marilyn grinned. "How'd you manage to get my cousin here for a real lunch? And with his wife, no less. Every time I see him, he's in such a hurry, he can barely eat." Her words hit the mark, and I didn't hesitate to twist the knife. "Anna seems to think you and I are having some kind of passionate affair," I announced, leaning back in my seat. Marilyn's eyes widened in surprise. "What? No," she exclaimed. "Cindy, that's not true." Anna turned to me, flustered. "Liam, come on. I made a mistake. I'm sorry." She turned back to Marilyn, her cheeks red. "A friend told me last week that he kissed a waitress here. I didn't even know you worked here." Marilyn frowned. Then her expression softened. "Last week? Oh, that must have been when I gave you a quick peck on the cheek, Liam. It didn't mean anything. I was just saying hi." I gestured toward Anna. "See? Nothing to it." Anna sighed, looking at Marilyn. "I understand now. My friend twisted things. I'll be giving her a piece of my mind later." "Good," I said, crossing my arms. "Let's hear it." Anna raised an eyebrow. "Fine," she said, pulling out her phone. Marilyn and I listened as Anna dialed. "Hi, Linda," she said, her tone icy. "Remember that waitress you said was kissing Liam? Turns out that was his cousin." "Yeah, his cousin. Thanks for that. You made it sound like he was having an affair." Marilyn chuckled quietly, shaking her head. I leaned back, satisfied. This wasn't over yet, but it was a step in the right direction. Anna ended the call with a forceful tap, almost jamming her finger in her frustration. "I don't care what you thought you saw," she had snapped at Linda. "And I don't care if you think you see him screwing someone in the middle of the floor. From now on, keep your gossip to yourself." As she placed her phone down, her face was flushed with both anger and embarrassment. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice softer now. "To both of you. Liam, you were right. I should have known better." "You're not done yet," I reminded her, keeping my tone firm. "When we get home, you're going to apologize to David, Megan, and Samantha. They didn't deserve to get caught up in this." She looked at me, her brow furrowing. "What about Luke? You can tell Luke to take a hike," I shot back. "No one pursues a married woman, no matter how much of a flirt she is." Marilyn, who had been standing nearby, raised an eyebrow. "Who's Luke?" she asked, clearly intrigued. "Her boyfriend," I said with a sarcastic grin. "Boyfriend?" Marilyn repeated, confused. Anna groaned, burying her face in her hands. "Don't listen to him, Marilyn. I made a mistake, and he's just not done rubbing my nose in it." Marilyn chuckled, shaking her head. "Sounds like you two had quite a weekend." "You could say that," I replied. "But let's just say Anna learned a valuable lesson about trust." Anna's cheeks turned a deeper shade of red, and she quickly opened the menu to distract herself. "So, Marilyn," she said, eager to change the subject, "what do you recommend?" Later that night, Anna spent nearly an hour on the phone apologizing to our friends. I didn't hover or listen in. I trusted her to handle it. But when she finally climbed into bed beside me, I could tell the weight of the day was still sitting on her. We lay there in silence for a while before she spoke. "Are you still mad?" she asked softly. "That depends," I replied, staring at the ceiling. "On what?" she prompted. "On whether or not you still think I'd cheat on you." Her voice was hesitant, almost timid. "I never really believed you'd cheat. I worried you might give some woman the wrong impression. I didn't want you to lead someone on." Her words hung in the air, and I thought back to how angry I'd been watching her flirt with Luke. As much as I hated to admit it, I understood her perspective a little better now. Before I could say anything, though, I felt her hand slide down my body. "Come on, honey," she whispered, her fingers teasing as they found their way to me. "You can't stay mad at me." She was determined to lighten the mood, and damn it, she was succeeding. Her touch was gentle but purposeful, and within moments, she had me sighing as the tension in my body melted away. I closed my eyes as her lips brushed against my skin, her long hair trailing over me like silk. By the time she guided herself onto me, any lingering anger had vanished. Her hands rested on my stomach as she moved, her rhythm slow and deliberate. My breaths quickened, and all I could do was hold on, letting her take control. "I'm not going to last," I groaned, my voice strained. "Me either," she whispered back, her voice filled with urgency. Moments later, we both reached the edge together, her body tensing as mine followed. As she collapsed against me, her head resting on my chest, I couldn't help but think that forgiveness had never felt so good. A month later, Anna and Megan were having lunch together. Megan leaned in with a knowing smile. "You and Liam seem to be doing well. Does he still flirt with waitresses?" "Not as much," Anna admitted with a laugh. "He's still his friendly self. Wouldn't have it any other way. But he pulls back now and then." Megan nodded. "That's all you really wanted, right?" "Exactly." Megan hesitated, then asked the question on her mind. "So, have you heard from Luke lately?" "No," Anna replied, her tone light. "And honestly, I'm a little insulted. One punch, and he just disappears? The wimp." They both burst out laughing, and for the first time in a while, everything felt lighter. Some lessons are harder to learn than others, but at least we were on the right track.